Hey everybody, this is Technically Speaking, the first and only show where sales and security nerds get to hash it out. I'm Asa Winchester, and I'm here with Mike Meyer, our Vice President of Information Security at Salesloft, where his team has spent the last 5 years building a world-class security program. Today, we're going to talk about why we keep seeing more and more security leaders in deals, and why we'll touch on what CISOs need to know about the security of sales tools. So, with that, Mike, thanks for being here. Well, I want to start by asking you, why are salespeople seeing such a big uptick in security reviews and deal cycles?
Yeah, I think there's, if you look back over the last 10 years, you probably see that number go up and to the right. And I think it's, largely a result of just the increased awareness around security issues and how devastating a cyber incident can be for a company, for a business. But I also think there's the regulatory landscape, right? The compliance landscape. We are seeing new privacy legislation pop up all over the world. Every year there's something different, something new. Even within the United States, we've seen individual states have their own privacy legislation that is forcing companies to really think about the way they protect data, and then also the way their third-party processors and sub-processors think about data as well.
Well, I know when an account executive begins a security review, it can seem like a bit of a black box. They're not sure exactly what's going on there.
Yeah.
But the last thing we want is security to break a deal.
Yeah.
So when you think about reviewing software, are there any particular deal breakers when it comes to security reviews that maybe an account executive should be aware of, but certainly from a chief information security officer should be aware of?
Yeah, any piece of software, any third-party company that we work with as a business, we look at thoroughly. We have a sort of standard lens or filter that we look at those organizations through. But every single deal is different because the use cases, the data that's processed is going to look different depending on the provider, right? And so if you're an account executive selling into a company that has a robust security program and strict security requirements, you've got to be aware of how your product impacts their compliance and their security program. And so, like I said, that's going to look different depending on what the use case for your product is, who the users are within the company you're selling to. What I would say is, account executives are not expected by any buyer to be security experts, unless you're selling a security product. If you're selling a security product, you probably need to be somewhat of an expert in the product that you're selling, right? But if you are an account executive and you're being asked security questions, right, you kind of need to know enough to be dangerous. You need to know enough about how your product impacts the security program of the buyer. But there are likely resources within your business that can help with those reviews, right? Your security team, your sales engineers, and others, right?
But where do you typically draw that line? Is it talking about high-level certifications, or is it more into how we're processing data, as you mentioned?
Right. So I mentioned kind of knowing enough to be dangerous. When it comes to things like SOC 2 and ISO 27001, I think the folks in the organization that are responsible for those certifications and those reports ought to be enabling sellers to know, what is a SOC 2, why does it matter, what's the difference between SOC 2 and ISO, what's the difference between those and complying with GDPR and other kind of regulatory requirements. And so again, those are things that the sales organization should be enabled on. But then I think when you get into sort of really technical questions around cybersecurity, if you've got a buyer who's asking about your application security processes or what languages you use in your source code, probably not something that an AE should be speaking to. And then I mentioned sales engineers too. Sales engineers often go kind of another level, have another level of depth of technical understanding of a platform. So sales engineers can be massive weapons for AEs as well.
What are some of those things that are going to come up maybe in the next year or so that we can get ahead of a curve on or be talking about today?
Some of this is more compliance than security, but I think some of the stuff that's coming out of Google and Yahoo, specifically around kind of domain reputation and spam practices, I think is going to be really, really important for sales teams to be aware of, right? Making sure that their practices are protecting the health of their domains given these new requirements. And I think what that means is figuring out where the right line is between sort of volume and getting your message out to your buyers, but also sincerity and making sure that the messaging that you're putting out in the market is quality and targeted, right? And so I think ultimately the stuff that's coming out of Google and Yahoo is really, really good.
I agree.
For the sales world.
Personalization, relevance, being really strategic with who you're going after, and the messaging, to your point,
Right.
is really what's going to make the difference. That's how you're going to convert.